Bad players often let one loss ruin their whole ranked session. Good players learn how to manage that tilt and enter every game with a fresh mindset. If you're new here, I'm Buzz, and this is the Ranked Ramble, the new series where I reflect on the hard lessons that solo queue teaches me so that you don't have to learn them the same way I did. Put this on in the background while you queue, eat, clean your room, whatever works. Or if you're here to watch the below average gameplay, that's cool too. Let's get into it. Bad games are inevitable. I know firsthand how bad players can be. I've played thousands of hours of Overwatch in solo queue, and I know there's tanks that don't take space, there's supports that position poorly and can't get value, DPS players that don't take off angles at all and just stack main, or they flank too hard and get picked first every fight. This is all super frustrating, right? I want you to think about this though. How would you handle that? Do you shut down? Do you flame that person? Or do you ignore the person and focus on yourself? I'll give you a hint. There's a correct answer listed in those options. What are you playing for? Are you playing with winning being your only intention? This is a bad habit. Playing specifically to build SR and win games is negative in the long term. When you play only to build SR, you'll be more disappointed when you lose. As I already mentioned, losing is inevitable, and if losing wasn't inevitable, the game would be boring. A better thing to do is play to practice one aspect of your game. This is a good habit. This can turn a bad loss into a learning experience. As a tank player, I often practice playing corners more, taking less pre-fight poke, or managing my cooldowns properly. This way, even if I lose, I can say afterwards, my team sucked, but I did a good job of taking less pre-fight poke. As a tank specifically, that's important so you can keep your armor for the trade, the frontline trade, keep your cooldowns so you don't have to bail yourself out of bad positions, put less pressure on your support players. All the above are positive and will help you improve as a tank player. As a support player, maybe your goal that day is positioning behind cover or tracking flankers. You lost a game? Okay, that happens, but did you see the tracer coming this time? Did you prevent a death to a pulse bomb because you knew where that tracer was? If you're a DPS player, maybe you are the tracer in my last example. Maybe you work on lurking more and baiting cooldowns before you go in to use your pulse bomb. Maybe you try to take a harder off angle when you're on tracer or a softer off angle if you're on Cassidy or whatever. Things like that are your little adaptations that you need to make. And I am not a DPS or support player, so I don't have exact perfect things to work on. If you're ever lost for that, I just say go watch some pro VODs or even watch back yourself. If you're ever lost and you don't know what to work on at all, I suggest hitting a quick 10-minute diagnosis VOD review. I know VOD review is boring. I don't do it very often unless it's with my team, but it can be very valuable for thinking about what you're doing wrong. Even just reflecting on each death you have, saying, could I have used that ability to save myself? Or was I in my support's LOS? Can be much better and more productive than saying, why didn't my Ana heal me there? Sometimes you will die, sometimes it will be that Ana's fault, but that's not usually the case. There's almost always something you could have done better to prevent your death. Even in the deaths that are mostly someone else's fault, think about how you can improve from that death. Maybe it's noticing that your Ana didn't have LOS on you. So, you may be asking, what do players do wrong when managing tilt? I'm glad you asked. The main thing that I noticed is that players tend to queue instantly. As a personal rule, I always take at least 30 seconds away from the screen between games, win or loss. This helps you get a little mental reset going and helps you not bring any negative feelings into the next game. As a tank player, my queues are instantly, so I don't queue until I'm back. DPS and support players might be able to queue and walk away, but you will know what works for you if you have more than 30 seconds. I also recommend not making your task that you do between your queues take more than 5 minutes. I notice with tasks that take more than 5 minutes, there's some friction to get that started up, and sometimes that can be preventative in having you actually go to do the task. Things like taking the trash out, taking your dog outside, getting a drink of water, things like that are all perfect to stretch your legs, get away from your screen for a minute, get rid of those negative emotions. That's going to really set you apart when you come back to the queue. Other players may not do that, and they may bring negative emotions into the next game. You might have an advantage because you've cleared your mental. You're coming into this game with a fresh mindset. Say you played poorly last game and you got gapped by their tank. So you step away from your monitor, you come back with a better mental, and you think, I got gapped because I was taking more damage pre-fight than him. Or I got gapped because he was playing a better hero into this matchup and I was too hesitant to switch. Things like that are things you can notice from a loss, especially when you get gapped by a tank. Another thing is don't always counter swap. I say that point because a lot of players get stuck in this trap of counter swapping when they see a counter hero on the other team. And that's not always the best way to approach it. Sometimes you can use a playstyle change, and especially with the introductions of perks in Overwatch, you can sometimes play around those better matchups or those worse matchups. Another thing that I like to do, since this is a video about managing tilt, I always have a rule of never losing more than 2 games in a row. If I lose 2 games, I like to take an extended break because I find that on that third game, even if I step away for a minute, I a lot of times come back with a predisposition of a negative mental, and I play through some tilt, things like that. I don't play as well when I play with tilt. I don't think anyone does. We're normal, we're humans, we have tilt, we have strong emotions. That's completely fine. Just don't let them impact your gameplay. If losing more than 2 in a row is going to hurt your mental in the long run, don't do it. When I was younger, I would always play 8 hours a day, trying to go pro, getting better, but I was never really focusing in my practices. I was playing through tilt. I was just hard grinding ranked, and therefore I would play 8 hours and end, if I was lucky, I would end up positive 1 or 2 games. But that wasn't even most days. Generally, I would end up negative or even. As I've gotten older, I've learned that a small subsection of focused practice is going to be way better than a long grinding session of unfocused practice. And that sounds pretty obvious, but a lot of people really don't think about that. Being able to set yourself apart there is good. But I find when I am playing longer sessions and I start losing a lot of games in a row, I'm less likely to focus on what I want to practice and play more to get revenge or to get my SR back. And undoing your losses is always a terrible mentality to have because you're going to come into the game with a chip on your shoulder. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that to your teammates. You don't want to do that to yourself. And it also impacts you because you may not be focusing on what you need to focus on. I'm a huge numbers guy, so I keep a spreadsheet with all of my ranked session data that details what heroes I played, what maps I played, if I won or lost, and if I was solo queued or grouped. I don't expect everyone to do this because it does take a long time to manage, but I do notice that it pushes me to take a mental reset between matches. Specifically, I have a notes tab in this spreadsheet that I write down what happened in that game. That simple habit has really proven useful to strengthening my mental since I'm able to process any negative emotions immediately right after that game. I also like to focus on what I did well. If I practiced something specifically and I actually managed it well, I'll write down things like that. If I had someone just completely throwing my game intentionally or unintentionally, whatever it may be, I'll write that down. I'll note to myself that this may not be a good footage for a VOD review. This we lost, but it wasn't really my fault. I could have managed my poke better. I could have managed my armor better. Things like that help me really internalize that and turn the loss into a learning experience, which I think is one of the best things that will set you apart. Being able to learn from a loss is something that a lot of Overwatch players and competitive gamers in general don't do because of the fact that there's so many negative emotions associated with that loss. Anyways, to wrap this up, let me give you a few things I've learned the hard way here. Don't rush back in after a bad loss. Take 2 to 3 minutes to reset between bad games. If you don't want to play, don't feel like you have to force yourself to play. This is huge. The game will always be there when you're ready to play, so don't force yourself to play. You might play negatively. Say you had a bad day at work, a bad night of sleep, whatever it may be. Just don't force yourself to play. Only play when you're ready to and you want to. I hesitate saying that because I don't want to inspire any ranked anxiety out there. I think those are completely separate issues, and I may make another video about that soon. But this is more on the topic of people who don't have the ranked anxiety and just force themselves to play. That's not a good thing. Lastly, don't be afraid to mute the team chat, especially the text chat. Nothing productive happens in the text chat from my experience of Overwatch. I understand voice comms are super useful in Overwatch, so I understand wanting to have the team comms, the voice comms, coordinating ults, communicating positioning, swaps, things like that. I completely get it, but don't let that damage your mental. You may get flamed when you're learning a new concept, but don't let this distract you from focusing on your practice. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you liked this type of content, go ahead and subscribe for more. I'll see you later.